Hello and welcome. This is rooflemonger, my friends. In this video, we're going to have a guide for you just about movement in Tekken 8. Now, admittedly, some of the ideas of movement are pretty self-explanatory. You know, simple things like moving forward, backdashing, forward dashing. Since this is a 3D game, you can move in and out of the background, sure. But every now and then, when you're watching a Tekken video, you may notice that people might start moving around like they're possessed by the devil. Like straight out of like an Exorcist film or something like that, right? And how do we do all these crazy movements? Well, that's exactly what this video is going to do. We're going to cover several important techniques. Backdash canceling, otherwise sometimes known as the Korean backdash. We're going to be covering wavedashing, the Hayashida step, otherwise I like to call crab canceling, things like instant while standing moves, and a few other basic topics, which we'll get into right now actually. Let me talk to you about the backdash, the main just hitting back, right? This is super important. If you don't know Tekken, forget all the rest, because this is actually going to be the most important section. Now, the basic backdash. One thing to note about the basic backdash is now it's the best it's ever been. So I know people are all crazy about backdash canceling, the Korean backdash, all that kind of stuff. That got nerfed a little bit, and the basic backdash actually got a lot better. So there's not that wide of a rift between the basic backdash and the Korean / backdash cancel, right? So if you can only do this basic backdash and you can't do the rest of the fancy stuff we're going to show, don't feel bad about it, because it actually works. It's a perfectly viable tactic. Now, why are backdashes so important in Tekken? Other than just the fact that they create space, right? That's cool and all. But here's the thing. If you come from like any other fighting game, what I'm about to say is going to blow your mind, because it doesn't work this way in any other game. When you're doing a basic backdash in Tekken, you can still block. Yeah, that sounds weird, right? You know, if you're playing like Guilty Gear, playing Street Fighter, like whatever, any other fighting game, when you're backdashing, you get hit, you better believe you just got hit. So we have our pal Leroy here, right? And otherwise, he's not currently blocking at the moment, but we're going to set him to just kind of dash all day backwards, right? And you know what? We're going to try to follow him here. Let's see. Oh, he's blocking. Blocking mids, blocking all sorts of highs. Okay. Now, admittedly, he's not going to be blocking too much in the way of lows. A backdash can block mids and highs, but not lows. Now we're going to have it that Leroy is going to chase me down, and much the same here. I'm going to be blocking the entire time. It's mashing back, right? That's really all it takes. All you got to do is mash backwards, you'll gain space, and you're going to be blocking all sorts of highs and mids, but not so much the lows. So in a nutshell, this is why backdashing is so critical in Tekken as a whole. Because on top of the thing of you gaining space, and you know, if they go for that big old kick or something and it whiffs, then you can launch them, punish them, whatever, right? Creating space creates opportunities. You can defend yourself while creating space. And that's why this is so important at its core. So if you didn't know, now you know, right? The base backdash can block. So that's why it's so important. You still can't defend against lows, but hey, them's the breaks, right? But yeah, you can defend yourself while gaining space. And once again here, the basic backdash, best it's ever been. So if you can't do the fancy backdash cancels, don't worry. Okay, so now that the backdash part is done here, let's get into the basics. I know I kind of put the cart before the horse here, but I just wanted to make sure you really know that about backdash. So one of the key things about Tekken is when it comes to movement, basically everything cancels into everything else. So if we do that backdash, I can cancel the backdash into a sidestep. And I can cancel that sidestep into a forward dash, and I can cancel that forward dash into a sidestep in the other way, right? So I kind of can freely just move around as I want. And that's the big deal. There's a lot of freedom of movement when it comes to just general movement. Some characters also have freedom of movement kind of built into their moveset, like Nina here. She can like sidestep cancel certain strings, and then say take those strings and then like forward dash, like. So it's character to character, sometimes it can get a little silly, right? But the basics is your core movement of, you know, backdash, forward dash, side steps in both directions. They can all kind of freely cancel into each other. And some people who have fancy steps or fancy movement, and they can also cancel those movements into other regular movement, right? So everything is incredibly free form. Now, obviously, a big part of this movement is to make moves whiff. And if you make a move whiff, then you can usually punish them some way, somehow, and go from there. The thing about sidestepping is, try as you might, sometimes you get it, but sometimes if you're just a little bit too late, a little bit too early, you might get bopped anyways, right? And that's no good. But thankfully, there's a way to defend ourselves here. Now, normally if we try to sidestep and then block, this is what's going to happen. Like, we don't sidestep, right? Because you're canceling the basic sidestep into the backwalk to block, right? So we don't actually get much of a sidestep going. But there is one thing you can do, is double tap your sidestep either way. So you're effectively beginning the sidewalk process, and then cancel the double tap in the back. So now you'll gain a little bit of that evasiveness, but you'll still be able to defend yourself. So now while Leroy is just attacking, sometimes in sidewalk situations or just regular sidestep situations, we can make him whiff, but sometimes we're just going to get hit. However, if we do this technique, we are, for the most part, going to be safe. Like, we can still make them whiff, but if we have to block, you know, if a move just tracks well enough, then we will block. So this is a way to sidestep while keeping yourself safe. Okay, now let's talk backdash canceling, otherwise known sometimes as Korean backdash. And what is it? Why is it important? Let's talk about it. So before we get into it, I just want to stress again, really, the basic backdash is the best it's ever been. So if you can't do backdash canceling, don't worry. Backdashes are better, and backdash canceling actually got worse in this version of the game. So it's actually not too much of a difference. Let me show you a comparison here. So yeah, certainly the backdash cancel does go a bit further, a bit faster, right? But it's not the be-all, end-all. So if you can't do it, don't stress yourself out about it. I know a lot of people that stress themselves out about it. But enough of that said, let's talk about just how does it work? Well, backdash canceling's sort of in the name, right? Versus just the raw backdash where you just smash backwards. The backdash cancel is you canceling the backdash partway through and then using that to kind of move faster than you otherwise would. So a lot of the time when you're going to be looking at the inputs here, you're going to see backdash. You're usually going to see a diagonal in there and then more backdashes, right? As you can see in the inputs here, right? This is roughly what it's always going to look like. That said, you can add an element of slop to it. You don't got to be frame perfect or nothing, right? So especially if you're playing on pad, the one technique I'm going to show you anyways, it's just easier on my brain, right? Hey, rooflemonger from the future here. Actually, I forgot to mention here when I was recording, but the one part of the backdash canceling where you're not allowed to have that quote-unquote element of slop is with characters with backsways. So characters with backsways, if you do the Korean backdash or backdash cancel correctly, hey, no problem. Because you got back, down, back, back, all that kind of stuff, right? These characters with backsways, the backsway enters with the quarter circle back motion, right? So if you use that element of slop and you input the backdash cancels with a quarter circle back in there, then you'll get the backsway instead. So not many characters have the backsway. For the rest of the cast, you can kind of just be really sloppy with the input and you'll still get it. But for these characters, you actually need true, actual precision. No down inputs at all. Has to be back, down, back, nothing else. So just FYI. So keep that in mind with the rest of the video when I'm talking about this here. Everyone else in the game, you can be pretty sloppy and still get what you need. But for the backsway characters, you do have to be pretty much directionally perfect. Now, back to your regularly scheduled program. But that said, you can actually do it another way. You can actually input just any direction you want, really. Like the cancel does not have to be down back. You can also hit up back if you want, right? It looks a little jankier, but it gets you the same place. Don't worry about that. The issue is actually it won't work for most of the characters in the game. Because for most of the characters in the game, if you hit up back, it triggers the backflip, which roughly about half of the roster has. So just to bring it up, it's an option. So now before we get into the weeds about how to do it properly, this is a technique that is heavily influenced by what device you're using. So not to say it's impossible on any device, because it certainly isn't, right? But it can be easier on some. So like if you're playing on a keyboard, there's tricks to make it easier than say using it on like a stock PlayStation pad, right? If you're playing on an arcade stick, the type of top your arcade stick has actually matters. It's actually easier to do on like a bat top lever than it is on like the more traditional ball top lever you're going to see on most arcade sticks because they're all Japanese made. So hardware plays a part, but it's not the be all end all. And I'm going to show you how to do it on arcade stick, on leverless, and on a stock PlayStation controller. Okay, so here we are, just a regular old PlayStation 5 pad first, right? Because a lot of you watching are probably using, even not PlayStation 5 or Xbox or whatever, but some standard console controller. So we'll start with that. And I'm here to tell you the basic concept's effectively the same as we've been showing here. We're going to backdash, we're going to cancel the backdash, and backdash again, and we're going to be moving along. Well, there you go, right? And you can look at the inputs here, and this is what I mentioned where you can have a little bit of slop. So for ease of use on pads specifically, it's easiest just to go like this. You backdash, and then just enter quarter circle back. Just like a hurricane kick, right? Quarter circle back, and then hit back again. And when you do it correctly, there you go, right? So there's the base backdash. The quarter circle back will already have the back input you need for the first part of the backdash, and you hit back one more time, and then it triggers the backdash, right? And then we just sort of go from there. I find it's easier to use like kind of the edge of your thumb. You can use the tip of your thumb, it doesn't really matter. So once again here, just kind of back, initial dash, then quarter circle back, quarter circle back, quarter circle back, so on and so forth. Much the same on the player 2 side, just back, quarter circle back, quarter circle back. And there you go, right? For some people, it's easier to use your bit of your thumb here. Some people use the tip. Whatever works easiest for you. But that's the general gist of doing it on pad. Now, let's talk the arcade stick. In a lot of ways, this can be the easiest or the hardest because the hardware matters a bit. If you have a different kind of ball top, like a bat top versus a more traditional ball top, that can help. If you have a very springy stick, that can also help. My stick isn't particularly springy, so I gotta do it the old-fashioned way, which is frustrating, but hey, them's the breaks, right? But let's show you how it is done here. So what's key is, obviously, you need the backdash. This is where it all begins, right? And what you want to do is, after the backdash, when you're holding back, basically down back, as you do, and when you let go, kind of let go in the up direction. So something like this. Now, if you have a particularly springy stick, you can kind of just slop it, and it'll bounce back into the back position. So that's why a springy stick matters. If you do not, though, you got to do it the old-fashioned way and kind of let go in the back position. So if you can tighten your spring in your stick, or if you have a springy stick, that's a big benefit. And just like before, it's just a matter of putting it all together. So once again here, backdash, hold the second back, hold down back, let go in the up position, and then hit back again, which will trigger the next backdash, and then hold it, repeat, and go from there. And there you go. So like, as you can see, I sort of slop my inputs a little bit, but as long as the backdash comes out, that's kind of what matters. So I can do it cleanlier, which I didn't, with the back, down, back, or you can kind of get that quarter circle motion that we discussed in the pad part of the section, right? So to me personally, I find stick actually the hardest of the three, but I also don't have a stick that's specifically set up for Tekken. If you do, it gets a lot easier. Now, the third option is leverless or keyboard. That kind of effectively the same, right? So it is button movement. And for a lot of things, it just makes Tekken kind of easier. So I'm using a Rooflebox. Yes, I got my own branded controller, a Furen FRS leverless style controller. So the layout's just a little bit different than you see from other leverless controllers, but it's still effectively the same. The thing that makes leverless controllers or keyboards so handy is you can use the SOCD method. Simultaneous opposing cardinal directions. So when you hold back, you can't hold forward at the same time. If you hold down, you can't hold up at the same time. It treats it as no input at all. And you can actually use that to kind of trick the game and make things a little easier. So for using our backdash cancels here, we're going to hold back and then hit down. So, you know, back, down, back, and then if you let go, that'll give us the back, right? So that part's easy enough. And now notice this here with my fingers. Backdash, right? So what's happening here is I'm holding back, I hit down, it gives me that down back, and when I hit forward, nothing happens because you can't hold two directions at the same time, right? And now when I let go, oh, it says I'm holding back again. So the game basically treats it as back, down, back, let go, nothing, back, which is exactly the input we need. So that's kind of the long and short of it. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're doing this method is you cannot hit down and forward at the same time, because it's basically, it'll give you just a down input, right? You have to use your one finger, clearly let go before you hit the next one. Otherwise, you will not get the backdash and it'll kind of slop it all together. So once again here, just back, hold down real quick, let go, hit forward real quick, let go, and that's all she wrote. That's it. Now, there is one other method here I just want to show you. It has to do with that up I mentioned earlier. So on a leverless controller, up is usually not where the other directions are, right? Sometimes they're in the middle. Mine specifically is just right over here. And I mentioned earlier in the section how you could also do the backdash cancel with up. And this is exactly what is handy here specifically, because you can use both hands. So here I'm holding back and I hit up real quick, right? It'll be a jump, but since it's Tekken, I can cancel any movement. I can cancel my jump into a backdash, right? And two-handed movement specifically, I just find personally just much more fast. It works for me. And hey, maybe your mileage may vary, but you know, maybe the one-handed SOCD method works for you better. But for me, that's just an extra bonus, right? I just find that very intuitive, and works the same on keyboard, right? Just wherever you press your buttons is however you have it laid out, and it works like that. So be it pad, be it arcade stick, be it a leverless controller, the backdash cancel is very doable on all three. Myself, like obviously, to me, I think it's easiest on leverless. I also don't think it's that difficult on pad. I struggle on arcade stick personally, and I always have. But some people, arcade stick's the easiest, right? You'll find every different person, they have their own preference, but don't be scared. It's very doable on any kind of controller setup. Now let's talk wavedash canceling. So a lot of people notice in Tekken all this crazy movement, right? That's a big part of it. And how do you do it? It's actually not that complex. The one thing to note, though, which is a pretty important note, is not everyone can do it. It is mostly the Mishima family characters that can do it, because they have, well, the titular, you know, crouch dash, right? There's a lot of characters that have some sort of crouch dash move, but it doesn't necessarily work the same way. It's not to say only the Mishimas can do it, but they're sort of the poster children for it. There's not many characters that can do it besides them. So how do we do it? Well, it's simple on its face. It's just a matter of being comfortable with it. So you got to go into whatever that crouch dash is. For most of the Mishima characters, it's going to be something like forward, down, forward, right? And I'll put you in your stance. So just do it. Do the move. And then, Tekken being Tekken, you can cancel some of the movement. So we're going to cancel that into a forward dash. And if you input the motion with just a quarter circle forward, you're going to end on a forward motion anyways. And simply tapping one more forward will cancel that wave dash into your regular dash. And from there, since that dash, as you're seeing here, that counts as the forward input for most characters' wave dashes, you know, the crouch dash, all that kind of fun stuff, right? At this point, since you're already doing that forward step, simply wave dash again, because it already counts as the first part. You only have to hit down forward, but due to the nature of this technique, it's just best to do a quarter circle forward, just so your hand flows easily, and also you count one forward in there, right? So that quarter circle forward will give us that input for the dash cancel, and then rinse, repeat. So we're going to take it slow first, just to show you what it looks like here, but this is the basics. Forward, wave dash, forward again, wave dash again. So it looks something like that. And of course, once your hands get faster, then you can kind of get really crazy, right? And it works much the same on the opposite side to switch your directions. So it's really just a matter of being comfortable. It's not too tricky. You just got to train your hands to make sure you're doing the right thing. It's one move into another move, into one move, into another move ad infinitum. And why is this technique considered powerful? Well, one, just the amount of distance you get. Like, you can travel the screen kind of in record time, right? The movement is ridiculous, so that's good. Also, a thing handy about it is if the enemy is doing any kind of movement, it will always auto face them. So if they're doing any kind of, you know, sidestepping or whatever, you don't really got to worry about it, because you'll always be on the right angle for them, so your move won't miss. Also, you're low to the ground, right? So highs will go over your head if they're panicking and hitting buttons. And frankly, for a lot of the cast that has wave dashes, like a lot of your best moves are from the wave dash, right? So when you're in someone's face here, you kind of screw around with like the traditional turn structure that is. So if they do something, okay, it's my turn, and they'll try to block, you know, whatever mix, high, low, mid, whatever. But if you start doing this in front of their face, then it's like, whoa, wait a second. Then they don't know what to do, and they start panicking, and they might make a bad mistake, right? So there is a mental game to this as well, just because once you start doing this, like, it looks cool too. That helps. But like, you know, what am I going to do next? What are they going to do next? Once again, there is some evasive properties thanks to the fact that when you're wave dashing, you're pretty much low to the ground, highs will go over your head, all that. And styling people is kind of at the base of all this, right? But there is a lot of practical uses for wave dash canceling. Now, this next movement trick is mostly just for styling people. This is what we call the Hayashida step, otherwise known as crab canceling. So the Hayashida step, what you do is you need to be a character with a backsway. This is mostly Nina tech, to be honest with you. Other characters that have backsways can do it, but they just can't do it as good. So you backsway, just quarter circle back. And this game being the game, you can cancel that into any move, right? So we'll cancel that into a sidestep. Now, specifically, it has to be a sidestep upwards. If you try to sidestep hitting down, the backdash will not work the same way. It has to fully complete before it'll cancel, versus you can just cancel it with the upside step normally. But when you do it all together, you do this fancy business, right? So it moves you fast backwards, right? Like, it's not nothing. And if you need to like shift your specific angle, then that works. It'll only work in like a clockwise motion because you can't exactly do it in the other way. But yeah, so that's the Hayashida step. Now, once again here, it's just quarter circle back and sidestep. And if you do it correctly, that is the Hayashida step, and you move backwards like a crazy crab person. Now, in our last section here, let's talk about how to do instant while standing moves. So, not quite as fancy movement as some of the other things, but it's technically movement based as you're moving from crouching, well, to standing, right? Many characters have very powerful moves that can only be done while you're standing up from a crouch. And for a lot of the characters, this technique is actually dirt simple. So, all you have to do is just quarter circle forward. So, if I want to do, say, normally a while standing move at, mildly fast timing, even then, it's going to be like 10 plus frames before the move can get off. If I try to do it too quick, like the game will think I'm sidestepping instead because I'm not ducking long enough, right? So we just need to trick the game into thinking we're ducking long enough. And if we do a nice quarter circle forward here, that's basically what we're going to get here. So what we're doing here is you want to emphasize the down and the down forward part of the quarter circle forward. The forward part, it can be as fast as you want. The down and down forward part, just linger on it just a little bit here. It'll still be faster than like manually crouching then getting up. But if you do it correctly, then you'll just do an immediate while standing move, which is great. And this is how it works for most of the casts. Most of the casts here, just do a slower quarter circle forward and you'll get instant while standing moves. Like for Jack, while standing 2-4 is very handy, very explosive move, right? So that's why we want to do it. But the problem is not everyone has compatible motions. Say someone like Kuma, a good reason to do an instant while standing move would be for his launcher, because his normal launcher is -16, which means it can also be launched on block. But his while standing 2 launcher is -12, so there's still going to be a little punish here, but nowhere near as bad. The problem for him, that method we talked about, he has a quarter circle forward move, right? It's a whole thing. So that input's simply not going to work. Now, thankfully, though, it's actually an easy fix on this one, because quarter circle forward may not work, but quarter circle back will. Because it actually doesn't care. It's just crouching, right? It just wants you to be on the ground. So down, down forward, or down back, whatever, right? As long as it's just downs, you'll get your instant while standing move. But then again, some people have quarter circle back moves as well. Like say we want to do while standing 2 for Brian. That's this cool punch where he just hits you in the gut and knocks you over, right? Brian, the problem for him is quarter circle forward is a wave dash, and quarter circle back is a backsway. So none of these are going to work for him because he's just going to get the associated moves, right? So what do we do in this? So in the rare situation where quarter circle forward or quarter circle back on the character, just neither of them will work. We also have another motion here of down, down forward, down, let go. Now in melee, this one's going to be the hardest of all of them. In most situations, it'd probably just be easier just to duck and then go for it raw. But certain characters, certain combos, they need that just because it gives them just a couple extra frames. So just to show you. And there you have it, right? Once again, depending on the character, just might be easier just to do it raw, right? But for the few characters that need that in combo situations, that is an option available to them. So this is more edge case tech, admittedly, right? But some while standing moves are very powerful, so you might want to implement them into your arsenal, right? You got to use all your moves. That's what they're there for. So if you ever need this technique, now you know. And, well, I guess that's the video. So I hope this video has helped you out understanding some of the more complex techniques as far as movement goes in the game. Some of them are pretty basic. Once again here, you can block while backdashing. That's why it's such a big deal in this game. Backdash canceling lets you move a little bit further, a little bit faster. Hey, wave dashing is really cool too for the characters that can do it. And instant while standing moves are handy if you need to know the tech. So that all said, now we're definitely at the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some Tekken.